They can take it no more. Why Missouri lawmakers say they're now getting tough with Kansas in the cross-state business border battle. We talk with two state senators and a policy analyst. Plus, the fate of Kansas City, Missouri schools hangs in the balance once again as the Missouri Senate surprises many by unanimously voting for a quick state takeover of the beleaguered district. And could more have been done? 8 months after a Kansas City girl is found locked in a closet for weeks on end, a mentally challenged teenager is found handcuffed to a pole in a Kansas City basement. Did the system fail him? Welcome everyone, I'm Nick Haynes. This week we shake things up on the program with two decision makers, a policy analyst and a journalist. Missouri State Senator Will Kraus is a Republican from Lee Summit and the author of one of the new proposals to more aggressively compete with Kansas in this cross-border business battle. Missouri State Senator Paul LeVota lives in Independence but works in Lenexa. He is very skeptical, though, of entering that cross-border arms race. Also with us from St. Louis, Show Me Institute policy analyst Patrick Ishmael, who's been researching the entire issue and has spent this morning, in fact, testifying before a Missouri House hearing on the issue, and the man who helps us connect the dots every week on this program on these thorny public policy questions from the Kansas City Star, reporter, blogger, and columnist Dave Helling. Now, we've been hearing plenty about this cross-state business border war between Kansas and Missouri. Rather than just grumble about Kansas taking jobs, Missouri lawmakers now say they're committed to doing something about it. In fact, just this morning, Missouri lawmakers went on the road and held a public hearing on the issue at Union Station. Some of our guests around the table were there testifying. Several plans have just been unveiled, aimed at keeping and attracting new jobs in the Show Me State. One solution involves gradually cutting taxes in half for all Missouri businesses in the next 5 years. The price tag, $350 million a year. Another fix from our guest, Lee Summit Republican Senator Will Kraus, would involve lowering the top income tax rate from 6 to 5%, creating a 25% tax deduction for business incomes, and cutting the corporate income tax in half over 3 years. The price tag, $1 billion annually once fully phased in. Now, some people may look at this and say, wow, that's a massively expensive fix. But is that what Missouri needs to do if it wants to seriously compete with Kansas, Senator Kraus?
We have to look at our tax policy, and that's what we're doing in the Ways and Means Committee this year. And my proposal was one that I started with. I am not naive to believe that it is going to pass the way it is formed. I know the other side of the aisle would like some revenues in there, and at the end of the day, we have to give concessions, and that's where I wanted to start the discussion at.
But the argument is, though, that Missouri can't stand still on this.
Absolutely we can't. I mean, if we do nothing, businesses in Missouri are looking across the state line and saying, I can save 6 or 7% if they live in Kansas City just by moving across the state line.
Now, Senator LeVota, you have said, though, that you don't think it's all about just the taxes to begin with. That is not the reason why a lot of these businesses are actually going over to Kansas in the first place.
That's right. We've seen growth in Kansas for the past few decades because of the quality of life, good schools, good infrastructure, and we can't just jump into what Kansas did without seeing what happens at the end of the day. As they cut their taxes, they're going to reduce their revenues that support schools and roads, and Missouri just can't be the Me Too state and go along with exactly what Kansas has done until we know how that actually affects our revenue.
Okay, now Patrick Ishmael, you were testifying again this morning at Union Station looking into this issue. You've been researching this. What did you testify to this morning?
Well, I do agree that it's not just taxes when you're talking about development. It's a lot of different issues, but taxes is a big, big issue. And the state of Missouri hands out $400 to $500 million in tax credits annually for development purposes. That's not a very efficient way of promoting growth. And what you're seeing across the country, from the Gulf of Mexico up to the Great Lakes, a kind of growth corridor developing where Louisiana is looking to get rid of their corporate income tax, their individual income tax. Same with Nebraska. Tax reductions on income all across the region. And I think that the literature is very clear on this, that the most destructive taxes you can have are on income, and among income taxes, corporate income taxes is the worst.
But you're looking at a state, though, that's looking at all of these businesses just leaving. That's mass exodus of businesses going from Missouri to Kansas. Missouri wants to do something about it.
I think it ought to. I don't think that sitting on our hands is really a prudent option. And I think, trying to read the fine print, I know that there's kind of a discussion about, well, when people start finding out what Kansas is doing, they won't do it. And I think that they'll probably read the fine print in Kansas, and Missouri can't be waiting.
Senator.
I think that one thing you have to understand is in January, Kansas had a record number of small businesses filing, more than any time ever in the history of Kansas. And what happens is the business owner may not pay taxes, but all the employees are going to pay taxes. They're broadening their base. That's what Kansas is doing. This hole that everybody thinks is going to happen in Kansas, I don't think it's going to be as big as people think it's going to be.
Okay, we're going to bring Dave Helling in a moment, but yes, Senator LaVota.
I guess I don't buy the premise that there's this mass exodus over to Kansas. We've seen some border wars going on with only a net of 500 jobs to Kansas, with a tune of like $250,000 a job. So, as we've done incentives and had this border war, we don't see this. We see people moving to communities that have good schools and good quality of life. It has little to do with taxes. I do agree that, tax policy can be used to move the state forward, and I'm anxious to work on that in the Senate, but straight taxes that hurt our revenues just because another state did it, I like the idea of digging into the details and waiting until we see what happens.
So it's been exaggerated, this border business battle?
Well, I think it's been exaggerated that there's a mass exodus to Kansas, because we haven't seen that yet.
Dave.
Yeah, I think this discussion, by the way, is fascinating, because I do think not only Missouri and Kansas, but all the states, as Patrick suggests, are having this discussion, a broad discussion of moving tax policy on the state level away from income and capital and transferring it to consumption, primarily through sales taxes, but also toward eliminating deductions like in Kansas for the home mortgage deduction, that type of thing. And the argument you'll hear is that transfer of tax responsibility from income and capital to consumption is the best way to incent businesses. Now, the problem, or at least the concern you will hear on the other side, Nick, is that there is, at some point, has to be an end to that. Otherwise, you get into a bidding war among all states in which everyone races to zero, and at the end of the day, you end up with no advantage at all compared to your neighbor states. If you end the income tax in Kansas, for example, and Nebraska does it, and Oklahoma does it, and Missouri does it, then you're no better off than you were before, except you have blown a $250 million hole in your budget or whatever. So I think as the policymakers that you're hearing today talk about this, they're going to have to balance that between incenting businesses and what the impact is region-wide to running government.
But Senator Kraus, you said Missouri can't wait, though.
I think as leases come up, these small businesses, they're going to look at that 6 to 7% they're going to save by crossing the state line. If we have a plan in place, a phase out of the business income tax or a phase down on the business income tax, they are likely to say, you know what, I like my community. I like the schools that my kids are going to school at. And they may stay. But if we do nothing, as those leases expire and those businesses are looking at 5 and 10 years down the road, they are going to look across the border to see what would happen.
Can we put that full screen back on our screen here for a moment, looking at Senator Kraus's plan? How this is going to be about $1 billion a year. How would that actually be paid for?
Well, the income tax for individuals is the largest part of that budget. And I look at the fact that we probably are going to look at a use tax going more towards a sales tax as as we continue the discussion. I'm not a believer that thinking we're going to get $1 billion cut on our budget. I think the other side is going to want some revenue, and I'm willing to work with them to put the revenue package in this. But I didn't file revenue because I'm not wanting to raise any taxes.
Okay. But the state of Kansas has been willing to reduce its taxes, Dave Helling, and they're bringing in jobs by doing it. So certainly what Senator Kraus is suggesting, by lowering taxes in Missouri, that will attract more businesses coming into the state, just like Senator Sam Brownback, Governor Brownback's strategy is in Kansas.
Yeah, it will bring businesses, Nick. Whether it brings employment remains an open question. Remember, you can open a business in Kansas, but your employees can still live in Missouri and would owe Missouri taxes. And so the incentives you have now offered to that company cuts those taxes, but doesn't provide any additional revenue other than the occasional hamburger purchase near the workplace. So that, and I'm not sure that's completely clear at all yet in in terms of what the impact is going to be in Kansas, which is why you'll hear business leaders in our community, Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas, worry about this border war. They think at the end of the day there's a net loss to the area.
In April of 2011, an elite group of metro area business leaders issued an unusual plea to the governors of Missouri and Kansas, demanding a ceasefire for what they described as this increasingly fractious border war over attracting businesses. The letter sent to Missouri Governor Jay Nixon and Kansas Governor Sam Brownback was signed by 17 top executives, including Dan Hesse of Sprint and Donald Hall Jr. of Hallmark Cards. They asked for a moratorium on these economic incentives, saying they don't create new jobs, they just shift them from one place to the other. It's almost 2 years later. What happened?
We should be listening to these business leaders because we really are, especially in the Kansas City area, we are the same community, and we can't keep having this war. So that's why we have to look at things that make sense. We can't cut our revenue so much to where we don't have quality schools. In Missouri, we're $650 million short of the foundation formula to commitment of the school. So we can't afford to make these changes unless we know that it's actually going to bring new jobs and new economic prosperity.
Patrick.
Well, I mean, especially on the incentive front, I haven't seen a whole lot of real progress in terms of reforming them, putting caps on them, transparency. I mean, I think we're looking at possibly seeing a new tax credit created this session. And I think that that's the wrong direction. I think that it's going completely opposite to the direction that the business leaders were looking for.
But there was a national study just recently done, a Good Jobs First report that was just done. And certainly, though, Kansas City wasn't the most egregious offender on a national level when it came to giving away economic incentives to bring jobs to a state.
Well, I mean, the New York Times did a whole series of stories about the incentive issue. They focused on Kansas City. It may not be the worst violator, but not being the worst doesn't mean that it's good. It doesn't mean that you're in a good place. And I think better than picking winners and losers, I think that the government ought to support all by reducing taxes.
Senator Krause.
The Senate has been pushing for tax credit reform, which are some of these incentives you're talking about for the last 3 years. We have had some opposition with the House. I will tell you that we got new leadership in the House this year. I believe we're going to be looking at these tax credits and reforming them down the road. I agree, we don't need to be picking winners and losers with these tax credits. If it was up to me, we'd eliminate almost all the tax credits and take that money and reduce income tax. I think that's a far better way to incentivize businesses to come to Missouri.
Okay. Now, sorry, Senator.
Well, yeah, I agree with the tax credit reform too, and I think there's some appetite for it in the Senate. And we need to look at that. We need to look at our tax policy. We need to look at other ways that create jobs, like Medicaid expansion, all together as we look through some of these things to make sure we're not just doing what another state did.
I mean, on the Medicaid expansion, I just want to chime in that you're talking about a new $3 billion expense over the course of the next 10 years. And we're talking, it's being portrayed as some sort of job creator. This just sounds like a different version of a tax credit. Well, where you get all the promises up front, but when you look at it at the very end, after all the money's been spent, where do you end up? And in addition to that, federal money is still our money. That's debt. Right. And it's not debt that's being spent out of today's dollars. It's debt out of the pockets of our children and grandchildren.
But it's our money that should be in our state and used for our citizens. And, it seems as though you talk about Medicaid expansion or other things, and you wonder how you're going to pay for it. But when it comes to the tax cuts, no one ever asks how we're going to pay for it. We need to pay for everything, and we need to have it all part of the same conversation.
Senator Krause.
On the Medicaid expansion, the problem we have is that people are looking at this as free money for the first 3 years. We should use this free money that's come from the federal government. Number one, it's our tax dollars. We should use it. The problem is we haven't looked at years 4, 5, 6, 7. How are we going to pay for that? Senator LaVota already mentioned that we're in a hole. We're not funding our schools where we need to be, $500 million. And I've yet to see a plan. The governor hasn't rolled a plan out of how he's going to pay for this after the free money goes away.
Do you have a rebuttal for that, Senator?
No, not really a rebuttal.
We've talked about Medicaid expansion many times on this.
I think the Senator's right. We have to pay for everything. We have to pay for tax credits. We have to pay for Medicaid expansion. We have to pay for a massive tax cut because the state government, its basic purpose is to fund education and fund roads, and we have to make sure that we have those obligations.
I want to
taken
talk
care
about
of.
some of those topics. Let me talk about another one, and we talk about education. If you thought the whole controversy over the Kansas City, Missouri School District had died down, think again. This week, the Missouri Senate, and we have two senators with us, surprised many in this community by putting the district squarely back on the front page by unanimously passing a bill allowing for a quick state takeover of the school district. The legislation actually is worded to allow the state to swiftly take control over any unaccredited district in Missouri. A similar measure failed to come to a final vote last year. The school district says they're making progress. So why this move now then, Senator Krause?
Well, the statutes were set up to require a 2-year waiting period once you become unaccredited. What we did is we said that DESE could do it immediately if they don't see progress. The problem we've seen—
That's the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Right. The problem we've seen is the fact that Kansas City School District has been unaccredited or provisionally accredited for decades. I've asked the question, when was the last time they were fully accredited? And no one can answer the question. So should we wait 2 more years? And the answer is we don't know, but DESE should be able to come in if they need to.
So, but why now, though? Is this part of the economic argument, too, that you were mentioning,
Absolutely.
Senator LaVota?
Absolutely. I think this is the Kansas City economic issue. You know, we need to make sure that we're taking care of our kids in the school district. It's a state issue. It should have happened last year. The Senate is unanimous that it should, you ask why should it be now? Because it should have happened last year, that we go in and we make sure we have good schools for our kids, which builds our community.
I have to say, Dave Helling, if we were doing our regular reporter roundtable this week, I'd say, wow, we haven't talked about this in like 9 months. Why did it come up so quickly?
Well, if you had the regular reporter roundtable, the level of discussion would be much lower than it is with these gentlemen. Let me just throw that in very quickly. I'm here every week. I can vouch for that. This great conversation. It's coming up now, I think, because David Pierce, the chairman of the committee in Jefferson City, has been pushing this for some time, and he is getting some support from Kansas City community leaders and others invested in the school district. I think the challenge as this bill goes to the House and goes forward, Nick, is that the state may not be as anxious to take over the school district as some people think it is, because the state will face the exact same problems that the current governance of the school board faces, and it isn't clear where you go after the state if the state takeover fails. Plus, I'm not sure Senator Krause wants to get phone calls in the middle of the night when a child misses a bus. And if the state takes it over, those kinds of phone calls might actually take place.
We will be putting the home telephone numbers of our state senators on the screen at the end of the program, by the way. Do you want those phone calls, Senator Krause?
Well, the state took over St. Louis public schools, and they've actually made progress. So
how much progress, though, Senator?
Not
a lot. They're not accredited.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is it's been decades since this school district has been accredited, and are we going to sit back and allow 2 more years to go by without a change? And if DESE doesn't think it's the right time, they can continue to let the school district, if they're making progress, the school district can continue to have control. If they have a plan and they present that to DESE, and DESE chooses not to take over, then they can wait.
Just quickly to wrap up, what I'm suggesting is that governance is a problem, has been for decades in the school district, but changing governance will not solve all of the problems in the school district, and I think the Senate and the House both recognize that.
Patrick?
Yeah, I'm less concerned about who's running the district. I'm more concerned about whether the kids are getting a good education. I think part of that discussion has to include school choice as well, but ultimately if the kids aren't getting educated, that's...
But back to Dave Helling's point, though, just because the state is now in control doesn't mean they're going to be any better off, though.
I think that's absolutely true, and I agree with what he says, I agree with what Senator Krause said. And Kansas City School District has been making progress, and that's good. But this is another option to go in and help the district if need be, if DESE. We've basically asked them to look at it, and if they need to, go ahead and intervene.
This is a Week in Review program, and one of the big headlines this week was that the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department are now investigating a case in which a 17-year-old boy says his father and stepmother kept him handcuffed and starving in their basement since last fall. Police and a social worker found the teenager Monday handcuffed to a steel pole. The report says the boy was cold and very thin. He reportedly told police he'd been locked up since being removed from school last September, and that he'd only been fed oatmeal ramen noodles and bologna sandwiches. The case comes just months after another Missouri girl was discovered extremely malnourished after being locked in a closet for weeks on end here in Kansas City, Missouri. Now, some people may say, is this a major failure here in Missouri with our state system that this is happening? I mean, is this a system failure?
You know, I don't know enough about each particular case to know if it's a system failure, but I know that the state has a lot of responsibility, and we need to make sure that we're always protecting those kids. And back to our previous issue, you got to have some resources and some revenue to make sure that you do that. And so these are the type of services that we have to make sure we pay for as we're protecting kids. And this is such a heartbreaking situation. I don't know if the state could have intervened to solve the problem, but we should be able to have the tools to do it.
In this case, we got the boy's parents withdrew him from high school in September, and the school says they don't have to have any paperwork whatsoever for a child to be withdrawn from public school. This was a report from KMBC 9 News. That was also the case in the child in the closet back in June, Senator Kraus, that there doesn't need to be any paperwork if you're removing a child from school.
The parents have a decision to make, and I don't know why they made the decision they made here, and should we have looked into the child? Here's what should have happened. Number one, this should never happen. We need to make sure that we protect our kids at all costs. And, you know, I'm interested to see if there's going to be proposals from the governor to change the State Department, or if there's something that was broken and we need to fix it. Let us know, and we'll look at it, and we'll get it fixed.
Does the state have a responsibility, do you think, in these cases, or is this beyond the purview of state government?
You know, the parents have to have rights to make decisions for their children, and can we just barge into every home and check on every child? And the answer is no, we shouldn't. We have a constitution. We can't do that. If there were signs that we should have seen, that's where we need to look for. Were there signs that these children were being abused? If there were, then yes, the Department of Social Services needed the resources to check in on these children.
I think one of the problems is that, Nick, people assume that somehow the state or even local authorities have some ongoing oversight responsibility about these cases, and the fact of the matter is they simply don't. They don't have the resources. They could never have the resources to check on every family, every child, school or not. That's why the real responsibility may rest with neighbors, friends, relatives, others who can draw authorities' attention to these incidents and get the proper response. To assume that somehow every home is being inspected is just a bad assumption.
And I really appreciate you being on this program to be able to answer some of these questions. Is this the kind of question, though, that you did hear about from your constituents?
Oh, I have questions from constituents on this agency or MoDOT or all kinds of agencies wondering how the workings of state government should be going, and they have a lot of suggestions, and I try to follow up and do my best to make sure that state government is being accountable and doing what they need to do for the citizens of the state.
Have you heard about these particular cases, Senator Kraus?
I haven't heard about the second case. I did hear about the first case. But once again, there's only so much we can do, and there was no suggestion on how we can change the law to improve it. And if there is, like I said, if there is a way to improve the law, let us know. We'll look into it, and we'll file legislation to do that.
In the last few days, top transportation officials have been calling for a 1-cent sales tax hike to pay for widening I-70 and fixing much of the state's highway system. A Republican senator joined with a fellow Democrat in introducing a bill that begins the process for putting the issue before voters. Even the Missouri Chamber of Commerce says it's keeping an open mind about the idea. But I thought the mood in Jefferson City was no to any tax. Has that changed, Senator Kraus?
I don't think that has changed. This is a referendum that allows the voters to vote on it, and it's a few senators that are coming together and saying that this is their proposal. Any senator can propose a law change or a referendum. That doesn't mean we'll give it overall final approval.
Now, you've already been mentioning, Senator LeVota, the issues of funding for all of these areas of government. Highways is another one that doesn't have much money at this point in time.
Right. Well, this is an example of where we are with our revenues in the state of Missouri. We've had tax cuts of about $1 billion over the last 10 years, and we keep reducing our revenue, and we keep reducing the amount of resources we can give to roads. And so now it's at a crucial decision where we may have to raise taxes on sales. It may or may not be the right situation, but we have to be very careful with our tax policy as we go along.
Patrick.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think when you're talking about new projects, expanding the highway, I think it's a question of priorities. And as someone who has driven back and forth between Kansas City and St. Louis for the last 10 years, I got to say, there has never been a point for me personally where I thought, man, we need a third lane. Now, I think that there are always going to be maintenance concerns. I think that those have to be addressed. That's the proper role of government. But as far as adding a third lane, I'm personally, I don't think it's necessary.
And you're on that highway all the time, coming back and forth.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the
Now,
time.
but what happened to the idea of having a toll road, though, on I-70? And wouldn't that be a fairer way of funding improvements of highways rather than doing a sales tax, a 1% sales tax that everybody would be paying for?
Well, I think there wasn't much appetite in the General Assembly for a toll road because it's cumbersome on these different communities that are around I-70.
But you've also pointed out on this program before, Dave, that it would be another sales tax in Missouri would elevate
Well, you
that
wonder
to a
when,
huge
and
level.
maybe we could talk about this after the show, when the addiction of lawmakers to raising excise and sales taxes will ever end. We talk all the time about cutting income, cutting property taxes, but boy, another penny here, another half penny there, 14, 15, 16 cents on the dollar, Nick. When I was growing up, it used to be 3 cents on the dollar. For whatever reason, that's the way most lawmakers now want to fund government, and you wonder if there's any end to that.
And that is where we need to wrap up our conversation. Now, thanks to our guest this week from the Show Me Institute, policy analyst Patrick Ishmael and Missouri Democratic State Senator Paul Lavoto of Independence. From the Kansas City Star, Dave Helling, and Lee Summit Republican State Senator Will Kraus. Please join us next week on the program as we bring you the person who is replacing Joe Reardon as mayor of Wyandotte County. Okay, all 5 candidates vying to succeed Mayor Reardon will be here, and you at home will get to decide who you think deserves the job. We'll see you then. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.